Guys, welcome to Auto Boss. This is rushed. This is rough. This is one of the first videos I've ever put up on YouTube. It's not going to be as polished as some of the ones which are out there at the moment, but it's good information and I hope you get something from it. Now that I've said that, let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to Auto Boss. I hope your auto shop is packed out and you're making a fortune. Here's 13 things which are absolutely crushing the profitability in your workshop. We're going to attack them one by one. We're going to look at what they are, how we can beat them. Now, these 13 things are in not any particular order, so I'm just going to throw them at you shotgun style. We're going to talk about what they are and ways to avoid them, and I hope you get something from them. Okay, let's jump in. Here's the first thing. People looking for things. And you might go, yeah, but that's just part of business. A disorganized shop is never going to run well. And if you have staff looking for things, tools, parts, oh, I ordered that part, I don't know where it was put. If you don't have a specific order where things are placed, or tool racks, or tool drawers where everyone knows where everything is, you're going to have people looking for things, and I can't stand that. McKinsey, I think it's McKinley & Co., actually did a study and found that the average person in the US spends 1.8 hours a day either trying to gather information or looking for something. I want you to do some maths on that. Well, you don't have to, I've done them for you. I didn't do them in my head, I had to figure it out on a bit of paper. If you're charging $140 an hour for labor, and you've got one mechanic spending 1.8 hours a day, which is the average, that's $252 in lost potential earnings. But that's just labor. And if you're the average workshop, which most are, they're running somewhere in the 50-50 mark, 45 to 55%, so half parts, half labor, you can double that. They're costing you $504 a day. That's just one mechanic. Now imagine you had two. But before you even go that far, you might say, yeah, well, that's a fair bit of money. But when you look at it over 12 months, if you've got 250 working days in a year, again, the average, that's $126,000 a year that you're losing in potential turnover because people are looking for shit. The best thing you can do is have an organized workshop where when someone goes to a tool drawer to open it, the tool's in the right position, or the stock that you keep in your workshop is organized. You don't just have random bits and pieces here, there, and everywhere. Sump plug washers. I know in our shops, we moved away from just having one drawer of sump plug washers because everyone had to culminate in the one spot, and sometimes it got creamed. We ended up just putting like the fast-moving washers like the Toyotas, the 14 mil copper washers, all of the generics. We put like a small grab kit at each bay. So then when you were servicing the car, you just had to walk over and grab it. You didn't have to walk 10 steps to get it. Things like that. You can't have people looking for shit. That's one of the first things that I see absolutely killing businesses. And if you look at the financials that I just showed you, if you look at the figures that I just spoke about, $126,000 a year, that is a fair chunk of change. So the first thing you've really got to look at is, okay, we need to get organized so people aren't looking for things. We need good labeling on everything. We need to centralize parts. We also bought caddies, so we had all four of the most common wheel size sockets on each hoist or lift. We had the brake bar there for tightening wheels up. We had the rattle gun or air gun, whatever you want to call it. This was back in the days before most of them were electric. So you didn't have to go looking for different tools. We looked at labeling and centralizing everything. So everyone in every store knew where everything was. And if we could cut down, even if we cut down half an hour of lost time a day, half an hour at $140 an hour with parts is $140 per mechanic per day. We, I think, had 11 mechanics by the end. So that's over $1,000, that's $1,400 a day. That's nothing to be sneezed at. That's number one. Let's jump on to number two. Number two, no systems in your business. Systems and processes get flogged by every single coach in the world, but they are so important. If you look at any major business, let's just take like the fast food restaurants, for example. You can have McDonald's running the same burger in thousands of restaurants across the world, and it's the same everywhere you go because they have a system. It can be run by 14-year-old kids because it's a system. It's an automated system that the kids are trained into that, and it works. When you don't have a system, every day is an adventure, and that's no way to do business. We constantly looked at our shop and went, how can we streamline this process? And we sat down with a couple of the mechanics. One was only a fourth-year apprentice who was an absolute brilliant kid. And I said to him, we need to streamline the services, your basic services, the oil and filter change, what we call the minor service, oil and oil filter, complete check over, top up all fluids, a road test written report. That was the spiel when we were calling customers. We said, okay, what is the quickest way we can do this properly that then we can transfer it through everyone that worked in the stores. Because if everyone did it slightly different, you would have different times that job cards were hitting the service advisors, et cetera, et cetera. So just for an example, we looked at the minor service. The vehicle was picked up by the technician, given the job card from the service advisor with any issues that were written on it. They could look at it, they'd go for a road test, bring it back in. As they entered the workshop, we'd always hit the horn so people knew that there was a car moving in the workshop. It was a safety thing, but it also was the horn test. That also alerted someone else that a car was coming in for a service. So then they would be able to go around, stand in front of the car, do the light check, do the rears. Car got on the hoist. It went up to what we just call floor height, where we just have it mounted on the hoist, lift it up slightly, do all the under bonnets. I don't have to tell you how to service a car, but we just made sure it was streamlined. We'd got it so streamlined that the car only hit the hoist and went up and down once. We did have to send it up or down 2 or 3 times, checking because we didn't do this or didn't do that. The other thing that we changed was the order which we did things. So the report was one of the first things we did on the car, that we could hand it to the service advisor. If it was only 1 or 2 repairs, they could quote it, call it, and get a yes or no on the additional repairs before the service was even finished. Instead of having to box a car up, send it out, bring it back in for service or repairs later, we could do it in situ, which saved, I don't know how many hours across the 3 stores that we had. Hours every day was saved because we could get a yes or no while the car was still on the hoist. If there was no extra work to it, sticker, handbrake adjustment, put it out front, it was done. Systems are so important, not just for the servicing of the vehicle, but the communication systems where when a customer books in, how the person takes the booking, how they write down the notes or complaints or issues that a customer has. That all needs to be reported in the same way for every mechanic in your store. You can't have one guy say, I just need to know this or that. It needs to be the same questions asked and the same situation, same system that go through every step of the way. I don't have time to jump into it. This is literally just an overview. But systems, build your systems in your business. If you need a hand with that, give us a call. That's something that we do all the time, is just helping people with the systems in their business. We were able to streamline so we could get through so many more cars every day, and we weren't constantly having to reinvent the wheel. Item number 3. Third thing that's an absolute profit killer is parts unavailability, but you find out once you've stripped the car. That is a killer. This, unfortunately, since COVID has become a major issue. Parts supply, I don't know why, but it's just dried up and guys are struggling everywhere to get parts for cars. If it's a repair on a vehicle, a repair that you found from a service and you call a customer, make sure the parts are available before you even offer it to them, because the last thing you want to do is have one of your hoists, one of your lifts, or one of your work bays completely blocked because you've stripped a gearbox out of a car and now you can't get a clutch. And it's happened to me, I don't know how many times. At one of our stores, the 3rd store we built, we had 3 hoists and 2 work bays, so 5 work bays. I consider a floor work bay half a hoist when it comes to workspaces. And we had a Hyundai in. I remember it came in, it had an oil leak, we had to pull the timing cover off it, so that was a whole front transaxle, the K-frame, everything down, lift the car off it on the hoist. And it wasn't until we pulled it apart, because we'd pre-ordered the parts were wrong. They were like a weird shape, and they had to come from the other side of Australia. It was going to be 4 days. So if you look at it that I had 3 hoists and 2 work, that's a quarter of our workspace is now completely out of action for 4 to 5 days. And that's an absolute killer when you're using your hoists. You need to look at your workshop floor. This is one of the terms I use, and I don't know whether I came up with it or I stole it from someone else, but it was your workshop floor as your cash flow corridor. And if you think about it in the way that, imagine a corridor in a hospital, and you've got a broken leg. You've been out there bike ride and you've come off and you've snapped your leg and they put you on that little trolley thing and they're reeling you through the corridor. You want that clear. You don't want to be bumping into stuff and having to turn corners and stuff when your leg's hurting so bad that you're screaming. If you've got things in the way, it's stopping the flow. The opposite to flow is friction, or friction and flow. I hate friction in the workshop. It should just be as easy to move into the workshop and out as possible. And if you've got one massive hold-up in your workshop, which is a car that's waiting for parts, that can really slow down your turnover. So one of the only ways you can really beat that is by confirming 100% that you've got the parts, or the parts are available before you start stripping a car, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've got a stripped car and now you've got a dead bay for 4 days. Sometimes it can't be avoided, like the situation I just spoke about, where We had the parts, but they were wrong. It's going to happen, but we want to minimize it. That's number 3. Okay, let's go to number 4. Number 4, this is a huge one. Lack of communication. It is an absolute killer, not just in the automotive trade, in every trade. I know that communication, most people think it's talking or it's reading or whatever. Half of communication, even more, is listening. So many people don't listen. And when I look at the workshops, a smaller shop, because this channel's really for the guys with the smaller shops. If you've got 15 shops, you probably don't need my advice or you don't need my help. But in a smaller shop, I look at there's 3 levels of communication. There's communication from the customer to the service advisor. And there's a communication from the service advisor to the mechanic. And the most important is the one from the mechanic back to the service advisor, because it has to go both ways. Same with the customer. It has to go both ways. That's the 3 levels of communication. Each one needs to be clear and concise. I might be like beating a drum you've already heard, but let's just go over it again. When a customer calls you and wants to book in, the service advisor needs to be listening and taking notes, getting as much information as possible that they can hand to the mechanic. The mechanic or the technician, whatever you want to call yourself, they need to be 100% clear that they understand the customer's wishes, wants, or needs, not be a watered down version that they have to sort of decipher what they think the customer means. The communication needs to be crystal clear. When you have a job card comes in from a mechanic and you put it on a service advisor's desk, you also need to have crystal clear communication. You need to say, this is what the vehicle needs. This can wait. This needs to be done straight away. If they don't do this, this will happen. You know, like, I don't know, say a small coolant leak. If they don't replace the thermostat O-ring, or you wouldn't replace the thermostat O-ring, you'd replace the thermostat. But if they don't replace this, this could happen. Make sure that the service advisor is 100% clear so they can relay that to the customer. One of the things we did in our workshop, and unfortunately this wasn't till just near the end when I'd already sold 2 shops and we only had the one left, was we would repeat whatever the service advisor had said to us, we would repeat back to them. So they knew 100%, both people knew 100% what needed to be done on the vehicle. So if a service advisor had sold front brake pads, disc machine, rear shocks, and coolant flush, I'm just picking. When they came out, the service advisor would say, this is what we need to do. Front brake pads, coolant flush, etc., etc. And then the mechanic would say, are the parts ordered? Yes. And then we actually had a thing on the job card, parts ordered, tick, and the time. And then they'd also say the vehicle needs to be done by a specific time, 4:30 in the afternoon. We didn't use 24-hour clocks. We used just like 4:30 in the afternoon. We'd write it down. Okay. The mechanic was 100% clear that parts were on their way. If there was a hold up on brake pads, saying we can't get the brake pads until later, but the shops will be here in the next half an hour, you knew which job to start first. You didn't like strip a car and then go, oh, well, now that I've got all the front brakes apart, I can't bring it down to undo the top of the struts, etc., etc. It lets them work around it in a way that they're not losing any time. Now, I know a lot of the more advanced guys probably understand this, but this is for the guys that really haven't grasped workflow yet. That's why it's important to have that clear communication. Now, the other level of communication that I talk about, the one between a customer and a service advisor, is the service advisor being crystal clear with the customer. When they're explaining things, they need to say, this is why we did this and this is why you need it. Or if there's anything iffy with the vehicle came in, you couldn't diagnose the fault, you couldn't recreate the fault. You can't just be like, didn't find anything, if it happens again, bring it back in. You need to say, look, we've tried to replicate it. We're not sure. We think it could be this, but we're not going to spend your money until we're sure. If it happens again, make sure you bring the vehicle back into us. Or if you're driving it and you're in the area and it's doing it, bring it back in. We'll look at it straight away for you. Communication is an absolute killer if you don't get it right. So that's, I forget now, what are we? Number 4. Let's go to number 5. Number 5. This is going to retouch on the cash flow corridor. Your workshop floor is a cash flow corridor. Junk in workshops. I can't stand it. And unfortunately, I can't be on a high horse when it comes to this one because I was the worst for it. When you buy or rent a workshop, you're buying it per square foot. Every square foot needs to make money. If you've just got like a junk room, you need to change that into a storeroom. You need to make every single square foot count because you pay rent per square foot. When you have a workshop that has, say, 2 hoists, but then there's another bay, and that bay is taken up by the owners or one of the mechanics' project cars, does my head in. Do you know why? Because I was the worst for it. I have a 1967 Mustang that I started restoring far out 15, 16 years ago. In fact, my daughter was 1 or 2. Took her for a drive, and she's now got a license and driving. She's 18 years old, and I still haven't finished it. I had it just sitting in the workshop, and it annoyed me so much it was in my way. I got it towed to another workshop, like one of our other workshops, and left it there because I didn't want to look at it. And then I had to then spend a couple of months at another workshop. I got sick of looking at it, and I didn't have the heart to send it back to the head office, so I didn't have to look at it because I know they would lose their shit with me. I was bad for it, and I had to change my ways. But it's something that I see so commonly. A boat or a jet ski or the dirt bikes or whatever the toy is, or just junk. You pull an engine out and say, oh, we could use that one day, or we could. Your workshop starts looking like a junkyard. You can't have shit laying around. Again, if we go back to the first point, looking for shit, the more junk you've got, the more stuff you've got to wade through to find what you actually need. Get rid of it. Clean it. Every single square foot needs to be accounted for. If you're paying $10, $20, $30, $50 a month, a year on every square foot. If you've got 10 square foot worth of shit and you pay $50 a year, that's $500 a year you're wasting on just a random spot on the floor that you've just got junk sitting there. I kept an old air compressor. We had like one of the massive air compressors, a big 2-cylinder thing, 3-phase power. I kept it for years because I thought it just needs a gasket and we could fix it and we might use it in a different store. I kept it for years. And it wasn't until 2 or 3 years of looking at it, I went, why have I still got this? Every workshop's got brand new or near new compressors. Let's just get rid of it. I sold it on Marketplace for $100. Made it someone else's problem. He probably still got it sitting in his shed and he's going to fix it one day. Try and use my line. Your workshop floor is your cash flow corridor. Go out and look in your workshop and say, what junk do I have in here that doesn't need to be here, and get rid of it. Don't throw it out. If you think it's got value, sell it. And if it doesn't sell, it has no value, throw it out. Get rid of it. Get as much space as you possibly can to get work moving through your workshop. That's number, I can't even remember anymore. 5. Number 6, big one. People not getting repeat business. If every customer that comes into your workshop is a new customer, you've got to spend that extra amount of time to get that know, like, and trust out of them, because trust is the only thing you've got apart from your name. Trust is the only thing you've got that you can lose with a customer. If you're constantly chasing new customers, there's something seriously wrong with your business. I need you to think about it this way. If you've got 10,000 driveways in your catchment area, what you would call your area that you can service, I looked at it as a 6-mile radius. In Australia, 10k radius. Because a 10k radius around a workshop gave us the ability to drop off and pick up customers and only be 5 to 10 minutes out of the workshop for a first-year apprentice or second-year apprentice or one of the girls in the office. It was something that we could service quite easily. If they lived half an hour away, it just does not serve us to be driving half an hour one way and half an hour back just for a service or a small repair on a car. So if you look at it, that's your major catchment area, and you've got 10,000 driveways. The average household in America has 1.8 cars. That's 18,000 cars that possibly could be coming through your workshop. Now, you're never going to get 100% because you've got, the new car owners, you've got the Euro owners that want to take them back to the dealer and things like that. And you really only want the 5 to 15-year-old vehicles, which is one of the lessons coming up. So out of 10,000 driveways, now you've only got 5,000 driveways that you can sell to. If you're not getting repeat business, you literally only have 5,000 customers that could come back, that aren't coming back. What happens when you've run out? Like when all those customers have stopped, and it's not 5,000 visits before they don't come back in again, because Bob here is going to tell his neighbour, Jack, don't go there because they didn't like you for whatever reason. He's not going to go there. He's going to tell his neighbour. You could be out of business in a year. You need to build repeat business. The best way to look at it, and the way I have always tried to look at it, is you need to serve your customers and not sell them. You need to motivate them, not manipulate them. And if you can understand that, in fact, that's another whole video which I'll be putting up soon, is motivation over manipulation. If you understand a customer's needs, you put the customer first, you're in love with your customer, not with your product, you will have repeat business. And that way you're not having to spend money advertising. We knew that it cost us over $30 to acquire a customer. So for every customer that came back to us, we're saving $30. It was like $30 profit built into the job straight away before we even start. Not only that, the repeat customers also had the largest spend. On average spends, when we quantified all of the sales in the workshop, repeat customers already trust you. So when you call them and say, your car needs XYZ, they're going to trust you and say, can you just go ahead with it? That is why I think it's very important that you need to concentrate your business into a business that nurtures customers and builds lifelong customers. Another video coming up soon too. Repeat business is the way that your workshop will succeed. Without it, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, as I like to say, giving yourself an uppercut. Let's go on to the next lesson. Lesson number 7, not following up customers. More, not following up on quotes. So many people will get a phone call, so many workshops, hi, my car needs a service. Okay, no worries. All our services are blah, blah, blah. They don't ask questions, they don't get a phone number. The first thing you need to do when a customer calls for a quote is get the details. So you can follow up in a week. If they don't book in, you can call them. Hey, just checking, you called and got a quote last week. Is there anything else we can help you with? Oh no, I chose to go somewhere else. That's a great situation because you've lost a customer, but you've at least got the chance to ask them why. Oh, can we ask, why is it you chose another workshop? Well, it's because they're cheaper. That's what everyone presumes. Like, it's not regularly because they're cheaper. It's because they were open on a Saturday and I could get the car in on a Saturday, or they're open till 6 o'clock at night so I could pick the car up later after work. Don't just presume it's the dollar value while you lose a customer, because as soon as you start presuming that, you start cutting your prices. You think, I'm losing quotes because I'm too expensive. Might not have cost. Cost might be not part of it at all. The way I see this is, when someone calls you for a quote and you say it's going to be, your front brakes are going to be $350, whatever, then there's silence. And you don't ask, would you like to book it in? What day would you like to book that in? Is there a day that suits you best to book that in? We never say, oh, well, look, we're booked out for 2 months. We just say, what day would suit you best to book that in? It's like, I think of it back in high school where you go, you might have a crush on like the hottest girl in the school, but you never had the courage to ask her out. And then you meet up with her 10 years after school and she says, oh, I had the biggest crush on you. And you're like, why didn't you say anything? She'd say, why didn't you say anything? Because you're too scared to ask. Don't be scared to ask. Say, would you like to book it in? Like, what day suits you? This is the price. Any other questions? No, what day would you like to book it in? And that's one of the big things that I see. So many people on the phone. I was in a workshop just the other day and phone call came in. It was obviously for a service, and he said, yep, the service on your car, 120,000. It was a Toyota Camry or something like that. He spat out what it was, and he said, yeah, it's about $700. Okay. That was the end of the conversation. $700. And he's like, okay, and then hung up. I couldn't believe it. I was like, for starters, he didn't go, what was involved in the service? But I'm getting off track now. He didn't talk about what was involved, when would it suit them best to get the service in. There are other options. We can just look at it like it says that your air filter is due, but you might have replaced it last service and it doesn't need doing. Like, there are so many things that 1,000 ways he could have done it better. But I'm getting off track. Following up customers because they showed interest enough to call your business. They had some level of trust or some level of interest in your business because they called you, but you ghosted them. Don't do that. Always follow up. Let's go on to the next thing. Next profit killer in a workshop. Uncharged diagnosis. This is the bane of everyone's existence. If you own an auto shop, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A car comes in and you spend 5 hours diagnosing something and it ends up being something like a broken wire. You call a customer and say it's going to be $600 and we found a broken wire. They're going to lose their shit. It's sad but true. So then the first thing you do is go, oh, I think I can cut this down a bit. We'll sort of shave a bit of the money off so it doesn't sound so bad. I think it really comes down to how well it's explained to the customer. We have had to check XYZ. We have had to go through wire by wire to find this situation. We found we had power here and no power here. There should be power, but that wire runs from the front to the rear of the vehicle. I don't have to tell you how to do it. In fact, I can help you with that. Comment if you want me to actually make a video on how to sell the diagnosis. But not charging for diagnosis isn't that massive killer. And there's so many times, I don't know how many times, should be looking at the camera. I don't know how many times in my career, I don't know how many times in my business I heard someone say, don't you do free quotes? Quotes, yes. Diagnosis, no. I don't know where people got the memo that diagnosis is free because it's part of a quote. Like, if you want a quote, just call me and say, I have a 1996 Toyota Camry that needs front brake pads. I can quote that quite easily. You can't say, my car's got an issue that cuts out once a month, only going uphill, and only on a Tuesday. How much is that to fix? Don't have a crystal ball. Like, no one gave me a crystal ball when I was in the press. You just have to figure it out. You have to charge for it. Here's the other thing which I think a lot of people forget. Your workshop just isn't, if you're open 10 hours a day and you're $140, $150 an hour, you've got to allocate the parts sales to that hour as well. Because going back to the 50% or the 45, 55, whatever you're running at, if you look at the 1 hour diagnosing, what parts have you sold in that hour? 0. So there's no markup on parts for that hour. If you spend 5 hours, that's 5 hours with 0 part sales. That's why they need to be charged for. And there's a lot of workshops charge different rates for diagnosis and repairs. If you want to do that, that's up to you. But you need to be charging for diagnosis. And if you've got a fear around it, you need to then change the way you think about how you sell it to the customer, how you explain it to the customer. Also letting customers know, look, we'll spend 2 hours on it. If we haven't been able to figure it out for then, we'll call you back and then we'll need to spend some more time. Some people don't understand it. Doesn't matter how well you think that your customers are educated. There are always the, isn't that included or shouldn't that be free, or my mate said it'll be this. Oh, how many times have you heard that? My mate reckons he knows all about cars. I'm like, I actually had an apprentice say once, he was a first year apprentice, he'd been with us about a week and he said, I know everything there is to know about cars. I was like, oh, that's cool. I've been working on it for 20 years and I still would know 5%. Wouldn't even know 5, maybe 10%, I don't know. But the cool thing was, the very next thing he said to me was, he pointed at an engine in one of the cars. He goes, is that a petrol or a diesel? I was like, thought you knew everything there was to know about cars. You should know that. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Charge for diagnosis. It's an absolute profit killer if you don't. Let's go on to the next. Number 9. Rework. It's an absolute killer. Get it right the first time. If you're not 100% sure, don't send the vehicle out. It is an absolute killer of profit. I don't know how many times I've seen it. A car comes back in because something wasn't fixed properly. Or you thought you'd fixed it, but it wasn't really fixed because you didn't spend the extra 5 minutes checking it over before it left the store. Rework is an absolute killer. Let's just break it down to the fact that customer calls. 1, they've lost a bunch of trust because you charged them, you fixed their car, but it's not fixed and now you've got to bring it back in again. The first thing is you're going to be taking the person on the counter, the service advisor's time up, because they've got to now console the customer, try and convince the customer that they need to bring the car back in. You need to calm the customer down, so there's the time taken out of their day to do that. Then you've got the technician who's doing no earning work because he's looking at something that he or someone else has worked on in the workshop that needs to be reworked. Then you've got the issue that you've got a pissed off customer, and if it's something you need to fix, you kind of go, should we fix this for free? Because if you've just charged a customer $1,000 to fix a problem, then you call them back and say it's going to be another $400, they're going to be furious. And most shop owners, and I know because I did it, it was easier just to pay for it and give it back and have a happy customer because I looked at the lifetime value of a customer. But for that day, I've just lost 2 or 3 hours of potential earnings, plus maybe cost myself $200 in parts. You need to get the jobs right. I don't know. I've been fixing cars for 30, geez, that's embarrassing to say, over 30 years now. And when I was finishing big jobs, this is before I sold the shops, when I was finishing big jobs off, I would get another mechanic just to put their eye over it. It's something that we did. Can you just come put your eye over it? Absolutely no worries at all. You know when your wife says, can you go get the salt? So you open up the cupboard and you look and you're like, I can't see it. And she goes, fine, I'll come. And as she's stopping towards you, you're looking frantically and starting to sweat because you're like, I can't see it, I can't see it. Where is it? And it's there right in front of you. And you're like, oh, I couldn't see it. It's the same thing. You could look at a car for 5, 6, 7 hours you've been working on. It could be 2 or 3 days if it's a massive job. And you just get so tunnel vision that you don't actually notice something. I've had like an apprentice come over and he goes, you've left a spanner like on the inner guard. I was like, didn't even see it. Like it's just been there for a day and I didn't even see it. Things like that. If you can avoid getting the return work by just having someone spend 5 minutes, not even that, 2 minutes, just looking over it, double checking everything, it can save you so much in the future by getting it right the first time. The coach from UCLA, John Wooden, I think it was, when people came to star at university and his basketball team, the first thing he did was teach them how to put on their socks. And you kind of go like, can you imagine being like some high school star? You turn up there and they're like, this is how you put on socks. They would have gone, why are we doing this? Because if you don't put your socks on and your shoes on properly, you get blisters, you can't train. If you can't train, you don't win games. He was that methodical. He got the basics right. That's something you need to do in your business as well. Master the basics, master the fundamentals so you don't get this return having to do for free work. Now let's move on to the next lesson. Lesson number 10. I can't do 10, I can only do 9.5. Chasing the wrong work. I did it, and I'm sure you've done it. I'm sure most workshops do it. You're chasing the wrong work. You want to pick up fleets, or you want to pick up the big whale, the business that has 10 cars, or 15, 20 cars. You want the big fleet work, or you want the brand new cars. I remember coming up with, I was about 23, 24 years old, and I came up with, like our slogan was going to be the cost-effective dealer alternative. And I thought that was so fancy. We sound so professional, but we're not dealers. We want cars that are 5 to 15-year-old vehicles. We don't want brand new vehicles. And so many people are chasing brand new vehicles. What can you sell to a customer, or what can you serve a customer by selling them when a car's got, 10,000 miles on it? Nothing. There's very little you can sell. They're chasing the wrong type of work. They're chasing newer cars, the in and out oil changes, things that really have very low margin on them, where you should be looking at those vehicles which are starting to get a few miles on them. What we always looked at, the 5 to 15-year-old vehicles, because at 5 years, things start breaking down, things start needing replacing. At 15, that's probably the upper limit, because after that, parts are getting hard to find, and so much shit's going wrong. The value of repairs to value of the vehicle starts to sort of tip in the favor of replacing the vehicle. Look at the work you're chasing and make sure you're chasing the right amount of work, the right type of work for your business, the ones which have a high profit margin, or at least a decent profit margin. Here's just another side note. It's not a profit killer, but it's something you really need to understand, and it's one of the first things I write in my book. Your biggest customer can't spend more than your profit margin. And I'll explain it this way. If you've got a customer that's spending $100,000 a year in your workshop and your profit margin's $100,000, so you make $100,000 a year out of your workshop. If you lose that customer, you've lost your profit margin. You're all of a sudden struggling to break even. The bigger a customer, the bigger threat they are when they leave. The other problem is, the bigger the customer, the less they want to spend. We should get a bigger bargain because we spend so much with you. If you take it to the extreme, I worked for an insurance company when I was about 20 years old before I got into my own business. I was only 19 actually, I think I was 19, 20. I worked for an insurance company. When you're a panel shop, and I'm not knocking panel shops, but when you're a panel shop, all of your customers are really insurance companies, and they set the price. You can't say, we're going to repair that panel, it's going to be $400. They say, no, it's going to be $200, and you just have to take it, or they'll get someone else to repair it. You've got to be very careful about chasing the big whales, because sometimes the big whales, they'll chew you up and spit you out. That is one of the big profit killers, chasing the wrong type of work. Let's go on to the next one. Lesson number 11, incorrect workflow every day. Absolute killer. I'll start with asking a question. If you've got 10 cars in the car park and they need to all come through your workshop that day, one is a brake job that you've had in previously, suspension job, a diagnosis, couple of services. What car's going to hit the hoist first? Because I know I've seen so many shops go, well, this job only takes an hour, let's just knock it over. Well, this job only takes, 2 hours, let's knock it over and just get it out so that it's done. If you've got diagnosis, that needs to be the first thing in. If you've got what we call upsell opportunity, USO, I understand that upsell is one word, but UO just sounds weird. So upsell opportunity, a service on a car that's done 100,000 miles, there's going to be things it needs. They were the first thing into the workshop, so we could get the report on it, find parts availability, and make the phone calls to the customers. Because if a car's booked in for brakes, you can't really call them and say, oh, while we were doing your brakes, we also noted this, this, and this. It's a set job. You know how long it's going to take. You know the parts are on their way or they're here already. You can slot that in. As soon as you've got like 2 or 3 reports done, and you've got people in the office organising, trying to get the quotes done, you can then jump onto those. Organising your day to get the most upsell opportunity is one of the biggest things that made a huge change in our business. That allowed us to go from 13 grand a month to 250 grand a month. Understanding what cars to get in and in what order. If you change the way you look at your workshop in that way, it will make a big difference to your bottom line. Let's go on to the next lesson. Okay, number 12, getting cars time committed. When a customer drops a car off to you, if they're a waiter, it's very difficult to sell them anything, and you have to do it there and then. You can't just say, look, we'll get onto that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That goes back to the lesson on workflow. If you've got people that are dropping in for hour blocks, it's very difficult to organise your day around that. You kind of need to put one mechanic aside just to handle the hourly in and outs, the waiters. We always try to get cars time committed, and there's a few reasons for it, but the first thing is how to get them time committed. When a customer calls up and wants to book in for a service or a repair and you say, yes, we're available on Tuesday the 17th, it's very difficult for them. We would always say, when suits you? Yes, we can do that, of course. What day suits you best? Because that gives the customer the choice. They've probably already looked at their calendar, and most of them will say I need it done as soon as possible. Very few people booked in for a month in advance. So we would be able to book, we would never book a day out so it was completely filled and then we were like booking 3 or 4 or 5 days out. We always allowed a few hours every day, 1 for upsells and 2 for this kind of situation. When can we have the vehicle? Oh, look, Thursday suits me fine. Okay, and can we have that vehicle for the whole day? It was a question that we asked them. Can we have that vehicle for the whole day? Most people say yes, because most people work during the day or they've got other things that they need to do. So we would plan with the customer so we could have that car for the whole day. The reason for it, when a customer books in for a repair, there's 2 costs. The first is the financial cost. The second is the time cost. How many times have you had a customer say to you, can you get that done today? Like, I would have lost count within the first 6 months of running my business. Can you get that done today? Now, if you have the car for an hour, they're going to say, oh, well, look, I'm sitting here and I've got to pick the kids up at 3 and I've got to get the shopping done and I've got to drop something in the mailbox, and you've lost them because they've already got the day planned out. If you can get the car committed for a whole day, in their mind, they've already lost the use of the vehicle for the day. So time is taken out of the equation. If you look at the flow and the friction, when you're trying to sell someone something, again, serve people by selling. When you're trying to sell them a repair, if they've already in their mind committed to the time that they're not going to have the vehicle, if you can get it back to them same day, that's completely taken out of the equation. It's then just a financial decision for them, not a financial and a time decision. Because if you call a customer and say, look, we can start it today, but it's going to take 3 days, we need parts, customers are losing their freedom, because a car represents freedom to most people. And this is one of the changes that most people have to make mentally when I go through the mindset training of being an auto shop owner, thinking like a millionaire, not like a mechanic. They are in a situation where their car allows them to go wherever they want, whenever they want. And if you take the car off them, they've lost that. It's the same reason I don't like the idea of going on a cruise. I've never been on a cruise, but if I'm on a boat, I want to have some level of control. If it's not my boat, I want to at least have a mate driving it so I can say, hey, the fish aren't biting, I'm getting sunburnt and I've drunk too many beers, can we just go back to shore now? I like the freedom. I don't like being cramped or stuck anywhere. When you take someone's car off them, they get that feeling of being stuck. They don't have their freedom to move about. You might have cars that you can lend out. What are the terms? You might have courtesy cars, which fixes that problem. We had them, so if a car was supposed to be finished on a day and we couldn't get it done, we'd put them in a car. We would, if we could, drop it to them so they weren't stuck out having to come into us to pick it up or anything like that. But if you get cars time committed, it takes half of that equation out. So it's just a financial decision, not a time decision, and not a loss of freedom decision. It's a great lesson. That's a great thought when it comes to building profit in your business. Let's go on to the next lesson. Next lesson. This is one my uncle taught me when I was very young. Profits in the buying. My uncle taught me this. He was a very wealthy man, like extremely successful. He owned hospitals and shopping centers, like I mean big time. And he always said, whatever you sell for the same as someone else. The only way you can make more money is by buying what you sell for less. And as like a 10-year-old kid, I remember trying to figure that out. I couldn't quite understand it, but in years to come, it made perfect sense. What we sell, like it or not, is kind of a commodity. We sell vehicle repairs. We actually sell motoring, safe and reliable motoring for customers. But what our product is servicing and repairs. And most workshops are going to charge roughly the same. So really, you've got to have a differentiating point in your business, but really, you can't be 3 or 4 or 5 times the price of the average repair shop unless you're something special that's working on Formula One cars or something like that. So the only way to make more profit is by buying what we need for less. There's so many different ways you can look at it. Everything you buy in your workshop, it's not just parts, because most people get locked into the parts. Oh, well, I need to buy my parts for less. No, there's so much to it. The rent. Can you talk to your landlord and say, hey, we're struggling? Like, if you're not struggling and he knows it, you might not want to, but you can talk to every vendor you have. Phone companies, you can call them and say, hey, I'm getting stitched, can you do something? I don't know how many times we did that. And you'd always $100, $200, $300 a year on your phone calls. Your insurance. If you've got a broker handling your insurance, call another one and get a quote. Nearly everything you buy has some kind of wiggle room. When it comes to your suppliers, I know there's people that have specified parts buyers in their workshops who will call 3 different suppliers and get the best price on each one. I've never been a fan of that, and I don't teach that. I teach that you should have one main supplier and you should put everything through them. Because if you do that, your buying power goes up and your prices come down. It's something that I tested for years, and I know that it works. We used one major supplier in Australia, is Repco, which is Napa. I would spend, I don't know how many thousands a month. I think big months were like 70 grand. We were able to get awesome prices because we didn't price shop them. But we did check on them from time to time. We'd call other suppliers and say, hey, you're starting to get a little bit expensive on this part of the matrix, because there's a matrix that break it down. So your brakes are going to be a different price from timing kits and oils, etc., etc. I am a big fan of buying from one supplier, but making sure you're getting the best price from them. The other reason I think one supplier is a good thing is because in the scheme of national business, you are such a small fry, they don't even know you exist. But to that one store that you're buying from, your local store you're buying from, the more you buy from them, the bigger the fish you become in their world, the more they're going to help you out. The company as a whole probably don't know you exist, but the manager of that store does, and he's going to do everything he can to look after you, which includes looking after you on prices. So, profits in the buying. Look at everything you buy. The less you spend on things, the more you can spend on yourself. Good thought. Okay, let's go to the next lesson. Now, I said there was 13 profit killers, but here's a couple of bonuses. The first is your workshop may have busy and slow months or busy and slow weeks, and I see it so regularly that there's no constant and consistent marketing. No matter how busy you are, you need to continue to market. And here's a great example. If you go back to that whole, your local area has 10,000 driveways, and half of them are your potential customers, that's 5,000 people. If you're not marketing every single week or every single month in your local area, you only market every 3 months. You think of it this way. Out of those 5,000 driveways, if their car is only due for a service once a year, that's only 416 cars due for a service every month. So if you haven't advertised for 2 or 3 months, you've probably been forgotten about. That's why it's so important to just keep it continual, because every month 416 cars are going to be due for servicing, or roughly 420 cars are going to be due for servicing. And if you haven't advertised in a little while, they've probably forgotten about you. One of the big things we pushed was fridge magnets. Because I don't know why, but I don't throw fridge magnets out. If I get a fridge magnet, it goes on the fridge. Even now, because like there's so many magnets on our fridge, I put them around the side of the fridge. I don't throw it out. It's kind of weird. But we're always in people's faces. We always had our logo. And I sold the business years ago. But I still go to friends' places that where our customers, and I see our magnets still on their fridge. I think, that's pretty cool. I actually still see the service stickers that we put on the back windows of cars. We put little service stickers, probably about 4 inches by 2 inches. Just a logo, just a name and a logo. No phone number or anything like that, because no one's going to get close enough to the sticker to read it. It was just a branding thing. I still see those on cars getting around, and those businesses have been sold and rebranded years ago, which I think is pretty cool. The other day I was driving, I was like, here's my business. That was pretty cool. Getting off track. Constant and consistent marketing. So that's the constant part. Now, consistent. It needs to be the same. If you change your type of flyer or your logo or your colors or just the scheme, and it's different every time, people are going to get confused. People don't sit and realize and remember your business. They're busy thinking about their own lives. They've forgotten about you until the check engine light comes up, or they notice that their car's overdue for a service. Or if they get the text or the phone call or the email from them, which you should be sending out as a service reminder. You need to be consistent with your marketing. Have the same logo, have the same colors as your building. Don't have red flyers in a blue building. It just doesn't match. It needs to be consistent with your business, and it needs to be constant. Here's one more bonus for you. And this one's the biggest killer that I see, a profit killer in every business. Okay, and here is the biggest and the most important bonus for you. Your work bank account is not your personal bank account. And I will put my hand up and say I was the absolute worst for this. So many people think their business bank account is their personal bank account. It's not. They look at a bank and go, oh, I could justify buying a new TV at home or something like that. And they're pulling out of the bottom line of their business to buy something, what I call a toy. They'll buy a toy with it. Or they'll go, I can justify buying this because I'll say that this TV was for the waiting room and I can write it off on tax. It's not your bank account. Your business is your business. Your personal is your personal. Pay yourself a wage, pay yourself bonuses. However you want to pay yourself, that's completely up to you. But never look at your business bank account like your own bank account, because it kills so many businesses. And especially when the taxman comes and starts looking, he wants every cent accounted for. And if you can't account for it and he just sees you're taking money out left, right and centre, not only is he going to hit you for that, he's going to hit you for the income tax that comes with that, because he's going to say, well, that went to you. You're going to be paying income tax on that. That's a killer. And just because I'm on a roll, here's one more bonus lesson. Don't borrow money for toys. How many people buy a business or start a business and the next thing they're buying a brand new car, they're paying exorbitant interest rate on it because they can claim it as a business expense. Yes, it is a business expense and there might be a bit of a tax advantage, but it's not an expense that needs to be spent. You don't need to buy a brand new car. And this is coming from someone that bought 2 brand new Mercedes on the same day. Dumb thing to do. Don't borrow money for liabilities. If you're borrowing money in your business to buy a hoist or a time machine or a AC regas machine, something that is going to put money back in your pocket, that's a good investment. That's not a liability. That's an asset. If you're buying a nice car for your wife to drive, that's a killer. Now, if you want to do it, be my guest, but I don't recommend it. And that's just a snapshot of a few things that are killing the profit in your business. This video might be a little bit longer than my normals, but I hope you got something from it. If there's something I've missed or something you want me to talk about more, hit it down in the comments. And if you could do me a huge favour and hit the thumb, because you've got 2 and I've only got 1, be greatly appreciated. This is Automoss. I've got to get back to work. I've got workshops to transform. You've got cars to fix. See you next time.